interactions with people of the way things are going. So I threw out the idea to Heidi and Roger about doing a Michigan Solar Story series on Zoom. I know that, with a personal plan like I have, you can, have 40 minutes, which seemed plenty of time to me. And so I had thrown out the idea of having and this is similar to what we did with the workshop program where we had, an overview and then a solar story. This would strictly be a solar story, about 20 minutes. And then that would leave about 20 minutes for questions and answers. And I think Roger had suggested we do it Thursday evenings, 7 to 7:40. And so I volunteered to do the first one on April 30th. Roger, because he has 3 different systems, has volunteered to do 3 different presentations. And Heidi was talking because of the press of business of maybe doing something in June sometime. Roger had expressed that he might not want to do 3 straight in a row. And so I did contact David Arnosti, who volunteered to do the third solar story. And I should back up a little. One of the reasons I had kind of started thinking about this is that, Michigan Solar Users Network has a Facebook page, and it's growing fairly quickly. We're over 630 people. A significant number of them don't have solar systems yet, but they're seriously looking into it. And so there's a pretty good dialogue going on that Facebook page. But I actually thought for this series, that would be the primary target audience, is just to, kind of post the different Zoom presentations on that Facebook page and potentially reach a number of those people that we already know are looking into solar. Of course, we would use any other type of outreach too that's possible. The more the merrier. And so that's kind of the present thinking, that we would do like maybe 4 or 5, and then kind of see what's happening. Is it going well? Does anybody pay attention? Does anybody show up? Because there are a lot of folks who have solar stories to tell. And so at least in a theory, we could do this kind of forever. And since there's no cost, and I think a lot of people do like to talk about their solar systems, it just seemed like a kind of a feasible thing to do during this kind of time of everybody sheltering in place. Let me ask Roger, why don't you chime in here from your perspective?
I think it'll be fun. I think it's a really good idea. In fact, we'll probably reach more people than we could with an open house, simply because of the logistics of holding an open house. So I think folks will be, anybody interested anyway is likely to attend and ask some questions, and have to leave it open so that we'll have a way to contact folks afterwards too. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a fun thing to do for this spring and summer. And John, on your presentation you did earlier, you commented on the concept that this is a really good time. Get things lined up now, and hopefully the restrictions will be lifted and folks will be able to go ahead and install later this year and take advantage of tax credits and so on. So good time and a good thing to do.
Yeah, one thing that's unfair, true, I guess, because of the situation we're all in. People do have available time. Sometimes they have more available time now than they used to. So it seems like this might be something that would get a decent audience, just because everybody's at home, or almost everybody. So that was a thought too. Although Rob, I'd be kind of curious, we start generating some interest. What do you see happening with respect to you working with potential clients and doing proposals to them, site assessments, actually doing installation work. Do you hope or plan that that'll start up maybe in May or
we're planning May 4th to be our first day where we're actually starting our next install, which, obviously that could change. But we're hoping or assuming that after the second extended stay at home, that, there would be some, maybe contractor work can begin again under certain safety guidelines. I'm assuming that things like maybe concerts or big events will probably still be barred. But I'm thinking things like contractor work will be back on. I mean, it's a big unknown. As far as quoting and things like that, we're able to do it remotely, but when we send it, it's always kind of with that caveat of, we do need to just get eyes on one time to make sure. The new software and stuff, we can do most of the quoting stuff. There's still definitely interest right now. It's just a lot of unknowns that's kind of keeping people back. The big thing would be if building departments and electrical departments will actually issue new permits. That's kind of the big question mark right now, because they're communicating with us and they'll send us emails saying like, yep, we're going to approve this, but we're not issuing new permits. So it's like a half a yes, so it's just hard to plan when we don't really know when we can get approval for people, things like that. So gonna have to kind of wait and see, unfortunately. That's sort of where we're at this point. Until we get another update, and hopefully there's more clarity next time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
If we can get something written up pretty soon, I know we can get home TV to help promote it. This sort of relates to the next item on the agenda. If we can have, is that something we could write up with the just basic, it doesn't have to be much, but I'd like to share it as some of the things coming up related to Earth Day, Earth Week.
Yeah, I'll get you like a paragraph. That sounds about right?
I think that'd be good. One quick question: Are you thinking that you would want each person to host their own Zoom meeting, or because one idea is we could record these and they could be sort of part of an archive as well. And I don't know if the free account lets you record or not. I'm not sure.
Yes, it does. I
cool.
was experimenting with that the other day. I just kind of assumed that I would host them all, kind of introduce the speakers, and I could
having trouble hearing you, John.
Recording too, because you're right, Laura. That's a good idea. That you might as well record these.
Okay, John, are you on your computer?
Yes, I'm on my laptop.
Okay, your voice is fading out a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll get closer.
Yeah.
Better.
And Rob, you are really loud and echoing. I don't know if you have earphones, but that can sometimes reduce the echo.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's not bad. It's manageable. I just it's just might reduce the echo a little.
I could try to track some down here.
No, don't worry about it. Just might want to maybe turn your mic down just a little or something.
I can do that.
Anywho, okay. Anything else on this? That sounds awesome. It's kind of cool that all the sites are in Meridian as well, because that makes it brings home TV into it more strongly.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of using multiple, going through the solar users network makes it statewide, if not beyond. Okay, well, just briefly related to Earth Day, there's a group of parents that are interested in engaging their kids in environmental related activities. They're talking with the superintendent of Oakland schools about looking at their curricula and their school projects, like getting rid of the foam lunch trays and things like that. But they are have been talking. Well, they'll meet again today at 5:30. If you'd like to join in that Zoom conversation, talk about Earth Day activities, and one of those is maybe sharing this green finding map, this green map, which some of you have seen already. I can share my screen on that real quick if you like. Let me see here. Or I can share it afterwards. Do you want to take a quick look at it? It's got some solar sites on it.
Oh, is that under the green finding map, the HTTP?
Yep.
.ly?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I can just search that.
Okay. Anyway, we're still open to comments on that map, but we're taking a list of activities that are already happening, like this solar stories, but also just fun activities that kids might engage in, or adults might engage in, or maybe both together. So that's in the works, and that'll be discussed again later this afternoon.
Map is neat.
Excuse me?
I really like this map.
Cool. So that's basically it related to that. Any other thoughts or questions, or if anybody have any ideas that they would like to throw into the pot?
Leroy, now what you're talking about is that the same thing as that we talked about before?
Yes, it's sort of taken a little bit more of a broad perspective. Let me just share it real quickly. Well, let's see. Or Rob, do you want to share your screen if you've got it up?
I can. I'm sorry, not exactly sure how to do that, to be completely honest with you.
It's in the middle on the bottom.
It says share screen.
Yeah, you have to hover your mouse over it for him to show up. But
Okay.
yeah.
Middle bottom. Chat. Oh, share. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
And then just pick the window that has the map on it when you choose it, which screen to share. And then you can unshare. You can unshare. Yeah. So anyway, that's just the Google version. Some students are working on a paper version as well. But if you go to that link afterwards, and if you have any thoughts or suggestions or things you'd like to add, or even pictures, we can still do that. The green lines are pathways. That blue line is sort of a suggested route where you could potentially safely walk or bike and see a variety of types of green infrastructure, as well as solar and other features.
And Roy, do you already have pictures of the solar homes?
I don't believe I do, no. So that would be something nice to add. Yeah. Great idea.
Should we add a brief description too, or just the picture?
Good question. Why don't you take a look at the map and see what you think after the meeting? But a picture would be great, and I think there's room for maybe a sentence or two.
Okay.
Great. So, Rob, you need to stop sharing. Okay, cool. We are back. Anything else on Earth Day? It's the 50th anniversary, which makes it kind of significant.
Roy, how do we find that map again?
Okay. Do you see the the chat window?
Yep.
It's the http://bit.ly
Gotcha.
/green-map.
Gotcha.
Okay. E.Lansing EV ready policy. This sort of relates to some other conversations we've had. John, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we had some previous discussions about, ordinances and codes that we could implement our climate action plan, and we had some discussions about solar ready and EV charging ready. And easy, well, I don't know if they're easy to do, but very smart things to do because there's minimal cost to do it with new construction. And you basically set up the situation by which, you already got the EV charger in your garage or in the parking lot, and your home is ready to go for solar. So it would seem like a smart thing to do and a relatively easy thing to do. So, one thing that came to me, I thought we should really check with the state to see what they're doing in the way of building codes. So Leroy had sent a letter email to the Bureau of Construction Codes, and it was, they didn't really answer the question. The question was, are they considering EV or solar ready? And basically they said, they didn't say anything about that, but they did say that they were looking at the energy code next, but they wouldn't be looking at the residential code. They decided to not look at the residential code anytime soon, I guess. So I, have no, this stuff gets confusing because, we have the model codes that are developed by national, international groups. And then the individual states kind of review those model codes and decide, whenever that they're going to adopt them or not. And they're all on a 3-year cycle. And so the one thing I did was I signed up to get updates about the energy code review whenever that starts up, just to kind of know what they're up to. But it dawned on me that we wouldn't be smart to just rely on the state. And so, every now and then I'd read something about it. And then actually just this morning, I got reminded that I had heard that E.Lansing was going to do a EV ready code. And so I kind of Googled it, and sure enough, they passed the code to require new commercial construction to basically have a minimum number of EV chargers. And so I was thinking, my goodness, okay, E.Lansing's done it. That's something that, to me, next steps is we should keep exploring what we can do on solar ready. And maybe that's a zoning ordinance, or, I don't think we can do anything with building codes. We can't do anything with building codes at the local level. But the EV ready thing, especially since E.Lansing did it, seemed like something we might be able to pursue soon. And I guess then I'll throw the court to you, Leroy, because has this ever, as far as you know, been talked about or considered at Meridian Township? Whoops.
Leroy, you're on mute.
You're on mute, yep.
Thank you. My housemate doesn't think that's a bad thing. Anywho, no.
Okay.
But we do have some inside folks on the Planning Commission, I think, and on the Environmental Commission. I think it would make sense to maybe suggest this, and then the Planning Commission potentially would make a recommendation to the board. The other option is if we've got Courtney Wazinski is now on our Environmental Commission. She's the liaison, and she, the timing might be really good just because there's everyone on the board seems to be fairly environmentally friendly if there's something that makes sense and it's not too controversial.
And I did find, what I had sent you, or a number of you this morning, was from a newspaper article. I guess was the proposed ordinance. Back, this is what it actually had been implemented. It looked like what had been implemented was identical. And basically, it's just that if you got 50 parking spaces, you got one EV charger. And there's some, a provision that if it doesn't make sense for your business or whatever, then, you can ask for a waiver, sort of thing. But why don't I send that to you, Leroy? And because I think that's more the official copy of what was passed. I think you're right. We have some sympathetic folks. What would be your very next step to kind of pursue this? You're muted again.
Sorry. I'm a little concerned about sort of Open Meetings Act. We're sort of a semi-official committee here.
Well, we're not covered by the Open Meetings Act, though.
I don't think so. So
No, I'm sure we're not. We're just a bunch of citizens getting together talking.
What's the open meeting? It just means everybody should be able to. Okay.
Now that does, like the Environmental Commission or any commission, right, has to, there's all sorts of rules that, you got to notify people and have a ability for public comment. But we're just a bunch of people that came in off the street to chat with Leroy.
yeah. Well, I'd be happy to make some contacts. I guess thinking about it through a little bit, bringing it up at our next Environmental Commission meeting might make sense, and then have an official recommendation to the Planning Commission. Does that make sense to you, John, as an environmental commissioner?
Sure. Let me ask you, do you expect a meeting anytime soon, though?
Well, that's a good question. I would like us to meet on Zoom. It seems like we've got plenty to talk about. It just makes sense to me to do it, but that's the next meeting is typically the first Wednesday of the month, and that's right when we're getting back in gear, hopefully, which is questionable. So I can ask. I'll look into that.
Okay, super.
Okay.
Hey, John, when you send the E.Lansing ordinance to Leroy, copy me on that. I'd be really interested in seeing that. That'll save me having to dig it up myself. I really like the idea of suggestion for commercial buildings offering EV charging stations. Of course, I'm also interested in the residential aspect of it, but that might require some building code work at the state level someday. But boy, starting off with commercial buildings and requiring the idea of EV charging stations might really help here in the township expand a little bit. I've not yet had any luck contacting directly Jeff Williams with their dealership, but I'm still hopeful that once we can get back together, I can do that and see what his interest is for his dealership. But for right now, it seems like a really good next step to see the idea of commercial buildings and go through the environmental.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks for that research, John. That's appreciate your initiative and your detective work. Does that sound like a plan for now?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. I notice when I mute myself, John, your audio changes. It sort of has an effect on you. I've noticed that in a couple other meetings. I'm not sure why. Maybe, but sometimes it's the opposite of that. So I'm going to leave myself unmuted, and it's not because I want to. Anyway, that's my excuse. Okay, Rob, can you give a brief overview of the PPA and then kind of some exciting things that are going on with you, and then we'll let the Q&A go from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did email it to everybody, just a brief write-up. I tried to keep it kind of brief without going into too much of the nuts and bolts of it. But basically, I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at it. You may not have, but essentially, we're in this unique position right now where big commercial clients that we're planning on doing, large megawatt projects for commercial buildings, businesses, industrial, things like that. With the pandemic, all of a sudden the mentality has changed. They're now much more focused on lower risk, as in institutional. So all of a sudden, the focus has turned away from maybe the more lucrative commercial type clients to governments, schools, like airports, bus stations, things like that. Anything that would be considered institutional. And now at this point, they're basically saying that this is now became their focus, and they have the funding. We're lucky enough to be with pretty close now with some pretty big commercial investors that do PPAs, and they have reach all over the world. Yeah, I've had some really interesting meetings lately, and they basically are putting together plans to try and essentially offer this to really any municipality or government building. I think they're talking to Lansing Airport right now, Eaton County. But my thought initially, and I kind of say this in the memo, is that if there was to be a kind of a first to do this in the area, to me it makes perfect sense that it would be Meridian Township. Has been kind of a leader in this already, so I think it's definitely the best fit. It just then comes down to what's the space, are there buildings with enough draw for this to be worth it? And I've looked at buildings, so the water treatment plant, then the actual town hall, and then the services center. And then in the memo you guys can take a look at, I kind of broke down and did some preliminary designs just to show what's, and so essentially it would be, just as you'd assume, zero cost to the township, and then, the investors obviously build it. And then the key there is just to lock in that rate that's going to be lower than the utility rate, and then, produce that power on site. And I think, you can look at my memo, but I think between the three, we're looking at about 3,200,000 watts, something along those lines. Here, I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, so it looks like, yep, our total between the three was 3,200,000 roughly kilowatt hours. And between those three buildings, and I have design photos on that memo as well, so you can actually see what it would kind of look like. We're able to pull about 960 to 1 megawatt. So covering about a third of that. And then, so that's, there's space. It's, and the one thing though is that the investors are interested in megawatt or more. So as long as it's close to a megawatt, they'll still be interested. But if it goes too far below, apparently these groups are used to the 25, 50 megawatt type projects. And so I had to kind of explain to my commercial client that, it's a little different. The space is going to be an issue. The recreational purpose for the buildings and stuff are highly valued. We're not going to clearing woods to put up, big arrays. Nancy Moore Park is beautiful. They're not going to, we're not going to tear that up to put in arrays or anything. So I'm trying to explain that let's think more in a single megawatt realm. But either way, the value's there, and it could save the township a tremendous amount of, money down the road, plus obviously make some pretty big steps towards the renewable goal by 2035. So, I encourage you to take a look at the memo I sent. I know we probably won't be able to really all fully read it right now, and I think that it's very much a preliminary kind of work in progress, but I wanted to bring it to your guys' attention that there's some real possibility here. And it's kind of, one of those, we're in that kind of golden window here where all of a sudden that these investors' attentions have been turned towards, situations like ours versus, those big commercial projects that are now kind of all on hold because of the pandemic. So all of a sudden we're, the attention has been turned to us, and, like I said, other municipalities are also good options. But to me, it's just, of all places in the Lansing area, it makes by far the most sense that it would be, Meridian Township before anybody else. So that's kind of where I just wanted to bring it to your guys' attention, just to see sort of what you thought. If there was anything else I could kind of, provide for you guys, or what the next step would be. It is nice though that we have the experience of these investors that have been doing these large commercial giant solar PPAs for years now. So they have all that experience, which is great. And then now we've also got a good relationship going with a really, really big electrical firm through Consolidated, and they have hundreds of electricians that could handle this type of scale. So yeah, I think it's an exciting prospect. I know there's a lot that goes into it, and it's will take time to work through something like this, but yeah, it got me excited. I just think that all of a sudden we could take a third of that electrical use and boom, right away have that replaced with renewable on site at no cost to the township. That sounds pretty good. So
Okay.
yeah, I guess take a look at the memo. I tried to sort of be as clear as I could and give you guys some
Okay.
photos as well, so you can kind of see it.
Anybody have any questions?
Well, yeah, I got a couple a question and some comments. One is that they got a lot of land at the water treatment. Well, I don't know about a lot of land, but there's enough land at the water treatment plant. I don't know, Rob, if this has come up in your thinking, but early discussions with those folks, we were kind of puzzling about whether there would be standby charges from Consumers Energy if there was a large PV array there, because we knew that there was no charge up to 500 kilowatts. We weren't too sure about something like a megawatt there. So that's I'm just putting that on your radar screen. That's something that could be standby charges.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Oh, okay. Is it better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I got closer to the screen. Yeah, I just mentioned about standby charges. My understanding is that up to 500 kilowatts, this is consumers, there are no standby charges, but there might be above 500 kilowatts.
Right. Well, that problem might sort of solve itself because we're hard pressed to get more than 500 kilowatts. I mean, barely.
Okay.
Just with the space. So about a half a megawatt, really. I mean, if you do all the spacing and shading and everything that's needed, it's on the memo. I have a picture of it, aerial design, and we're looking at somewhere around 520 to 540. But if you took it down to 500, we could then circumvent any issue with going above.
Well, I haven't seen your memo yet, but the site that our early discussions we were looking at was actually near a pumping station and not on the actual site of the building.
Okay.
Will you put in it actually on the building?
I designed on, using the flat roof space, but then also the field that's on the north side of the property.
I will send you a map which will give you a location of the other site that was considered, because the other site actually I think had enough space for a megawatt. But anyway.
Yeah, I was just kind of working with the aerial when I put in the address, so I wasn't exactly sure what our boundaries were. It was more just to kind of give a representation of
what was your when you think in terms of the municipal building, the municipal township hall and stuff, where were you thinking to put the array?
Sure. So the buildings themselves do have a fair amount of roof space. So there's some that can go there. I broke it down in the email how much can go on which, and then also the big thing there would be carports.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where you're going to get most of it. In fact, between the buildings and the carports, way more than you need there at the building. So I think I got it up to like 177% of electrical use, which obviously is more than enough. And so between the buildings and the carport or just the carport, you're going to get to about 100%. You wouldn't do all of it because 177 obviously is more than we need. But yeah, it would be kind of like either using the north building, the main building, some combination of that. And then when you see my memo, you can kind of see what I was looking at there. But yeah, more than enough space to fully offset.
Super. Hey, let me ask you, my last question is, If we got the RFP out for the service center and the South Fire Station, if the township decided we just wanted to put the 20 kilowatt system on the service center, does that screw you up real bad, or could you go ahead with the township hall and the public safety building and water treatment?
Yeah, I mean, we could still, move forward with the other ones. It's just I'd have to go to the investors, and if it's a little less than a megawatt, I'll have to kind of, coax them a little bit. Just they're used to dealing with such big numbers. But once again, solar is kind of the best investment right now. So there's a lot more interest than there was even a year ago. With the services center, I think about 150 kilowatts would get full coverage there. And that's another thing too that I didn't really go into in the memo, but they're also willing to have some, kind of like buyback plans if you wanted to actually end up owning parts of the system, things like that. It can be hybrid, and it can be multiple buildings included in the same PPA. I mean, so there's a lot of options where, we could add to that 20 kilowatts of the services center, but then the township could end up then purchasing part of that back, so they own more of the system. So there's options. There's options there. But yeah, that one, I think you could fit about 300 kilowatts at the service center, but you only need about 150 for full offset there. So a lot of different options and potential. So.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And as I get it, you'll take a look at, John, you've got that info on the water treatment that you can share with Rob.
Yes.
And we do have a walkthrough. There was an addendum to the RFP for the solar systems to move the walkthrough to May 7th.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, cool. And I don't know. I can run this by Derek. Maybe if you guys could think about maybe just taking a glance at Rob's memo. Do we want to try and move forward quicker than to discuss this again at our next meeting, or what are your preferences?
Up to you guys.
How about other people? Roger, Joanne, Heidi, John, do you have any other thoughts?
Well, I'll have a look at what Rob sent out, and it sounds like it's in a place where once we make comments, we might want to talk about it again at the next meeting.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, I will also share this with Derek, and depending on how it's framed, this does seem like a pretty rare opportunity. It might be something, Rob, to bring up to the township board. You're a township resident still, Rob?
Yes, I am.
Because you can talk to the board anytime. You can also bring it up at an environmental commission meeting in public comment period, which is, you got a couple minutes basically, but any other comments? While we're talking about our next meeting, why don't we pick a date? Do folks have a preference? Like Thursday the 14th or the 21st of May?
14th is fine.
Anybody have a thought on that?
Either one.
Okay. Do we want to plan on virtual unless there's more of a lifting of the coffee shop ban or the township ban?
Yeah, virtual worked out well. I like it.
Yeah, it would probably be joining virtually anyways. Just yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Oh,
this is my first time on Zoom, and actually, I think it worked
Yeah.
quite well.
We've been, yeah.
you've been zoomed out. Heidi, before we...
I just don't want to. We were actually shelter in place long before it started because, we just can't be down 14 days. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Would you mind playing us a little song on your piano before we leave? I'm partly serious. Partly serious. By the way, we are...
Put that on the agenda for the
Yeah,
next
this is
time.
my.
document.
I got it in December. It's my Baldwin 1995, so it was built in the U.S.
Cool.
It looks energy efficient.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did not get you can get all these like electronic player pianos now to just kind of play things, but we didn't get that.
Okay, 11 o'clock on the 14th. One of the things I've been doing in shelter in place is taking this online class related to climate change, and it's put out by the Association of Climate Officers, and it's been a challenge to listen to a climate scientist for 3 hours at a time. But there's a lot of good information, and I hope to sort of package up some of that and share what I legally can share with y'all. Some good info on terminology and just the differences between climate change, global warming, adaptation, versus mitigation and things like that. So as we...
Why
Go
can't
ahead.
you legally share just because of copyright?
Yeah, I think there's a confidentiality agreement,
Okay.
but I might go ahead and break the law. I like to do that occasionally just for health's sake.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of it is just public information. Part of it is inspired by the state's interest in offering a class and sort of gearing up for a kind of a stronger climate change initiative at the state level. So there are a number of people from Michigan that are going through this training, and it might spark some opportunities for us as we move forward with our energy agendas. So that's all I really had to share. If you're interested in getting involved with it, there are some opportunities. There are several classes that they offer.
Is there a website?
Yes, I will share it, but I think it's called climateofficers.org. And so you can go explore that if you want. Anything else for the common good here? We're closing in on an hour. Go ahead.
Lori, NOAA just did a really great presentation on some local climate effects in the Great Lakes region. They had 4 different climate experts from the Weather Service and some of the surveys that do climate work on a very local level here in the Great Lakes region. I'll send you the link to the presentation. It's really excellent. You might be interested in that in relationship with your class.
That's a great suggestion. Do you want to just send that out to all of us?
Yeah, I can. There's no copyright there.
Okay, great. This guy, actually one of the climate scientists who presented was from NOAA, and there are some amazing resources out there. He's very good, and I'm glad I know the guy. Just sitting in my seat listening to statistics for 3 hours was a challenge for me. But the timing seems just amazing right now as we think about how do we deal with a global challenge, this pandemic, and how might we deal with other potential emergencies in creative, cooperative ways that maybe we understand better now, having gone through this experience.
Yeah, did they talk about just, we're going through this pandemic, but there's such evidence of how much it's, right now of how much better the air is and how much better the water is. And, it seems pretty uncontroversial that some of these things were caused by our actions. Are caused.
Yeah, I heard the Earth is actually quieter. They detect these background noise on the Earth, the planet, and it's gotten a lot quieter. It strikes me that we've had the largest reduction in greenhouse gases in human history just in the last few weeks. But no one's really talking about. Maybe other people are talking about it, but it seems pretty significant. And the way.
Very interesting. Wow.
Yeah,
You see it occasionally, but you don't see. And probably everyone's adjusting at this point for their current work, but scientists talking about it as much yet. Yeah.
I'm just
maybe they're out gathering info. I don't know.
I'm afraid of what's going to happen once it's lifted. I'm afraid that this is going to be used as an excuse to ramp up all sorts of greenhouse gas emissions, and the EPA has already used this as an excuse not to regulate a lot of things.
Right.
So it's great right now. I'm just worried that this could turn into what's going to happen once it's lifted. They're going to say, oh, we got to catch up on production and this and that, so we're going to waive restrictions, we're going to not enforce regulations. So I'm just afraid the Earth might take a hit once this is said and done. But in the meantime, it's nice. I heard Venice can see fish for the first time in like 70 years or something like that. So there's a lot of nice things about this right now, but we'll see once it's over.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for this. This is an exciting conversation. Can we continue talking about this and what we're learning and what how we might frame some of this as we move forward?
Sure.
Let me know if anybody didn't get the memo. I sent it to everyone.
Nope, I got it. Just didn't read it
I
yet. Yeah,
I
but
did
we'll
get
read
it.
it for next month. Yeah.
No, okay. Joanne, you didn't get it?
I didn't get it, Rob.
No, okay.
When you get a chance.
Sure. Yeah, I can make sure to get that to you right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The one other thing, I'm not sure if everyone has heard, because you hear things or you don't hear things or see them, is that they believe that it's more, that air pollution causes it to be transmitted more or be more contagious. But, as well as people who live in air pollution are more susceptible to lung issues involved with it. But I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this comes out of this.
I should have checked with you guys before I recorded this, but I think I recorded most of this conversation. If anybody does not want me to share a recording, I will honor your request. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and send out a recording of our meeting to. Does anybody have a problem with that?
No, that's
No,
fine.
It's fine.
Maybe my dog will be famous.
That was precious. Could you do that again next time, Roger?
That's really cute.
Oh, sure. I should have my dog on here instead of me.
That can be arranged, I think, under video options. You can
Next time I'll bring mine in too. You guys can be
They're
here.
excellent. Yes, yes.
you can choose backgrounds if you like.
Whee!
Anyway, have fun with Zoom. I'm doing an open mic tonight if anybody wants to tune in, and my music page. Any other parting comments?
Nope, thanks a lot, Rolly.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks
thank
for
you. Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah.
Great meeting.
Thanks.
All right.
Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Hi, Nance.
Hi, how are you?
Good.